You just press play on the Last Breath Huntcast, home of the Huntroversy. We're here to entertain, educate, and engage. And in case you didn't know, you only live once. But if you do it right, once is enough. Don't waste it. Okay, everybody, welcome to episode number 52 of the Last Breath Huntcast, home of the Huntroversy. So if you listened to our intro, heard the word Huntroversy in it, this is the home of the Huntroversy, and that is just a topic that does not have a right or wrong answer, and we like to cover those from time to time, and this episode is a Huntroversy-style episode. The special part about this episode is because Garrett and I are sitting across from one another right now, like usual, but we have a guest in here. I know, Garrett, is exciting.
He's so hot.
So, what is your name, guest?
My name is Andrew Jordan. I'm from Elmwood, Illinois. I'm 24 years old. I'm part of working class hunter.
Yeah, and this is kind of cool because he was one of our call-ins.
Yeah.
And now you're in studio.
I'm actually not that far away from you guys, though, on a grand scheme.
About an hour.
Relatively, right.
Elmwood, Illinois, for those of you guys that don't know, is kind of down by Peoria, Illinois, kind of that...
straight west.
Straight west of Peoria.
About 25 minutes.
As you would classify it, would that be central Illinois, technically, if somebody's like, where are you from?
Technically, I would say central Illinois.
Okay, fair enough.
So, technically, I guess. If you say Peoria area, they'll be like, oh, okay.
Peoria area. All right. So, yeah, Andrew Jordan, working class hunter. So, for those of you guys that don't know about the working class hunter, for somebody that can go view your show, where can they or will they be able to watch your show at? And what's kind of the overview or the angle that you guys are taking with your show?
So you can find us on Facebook and Instagram. That's the main two pages of right now. And the shows air on Carbon TV. And basically the show, it integrates, we all work. We're not no professional by all means, just average Joe's just trying to do your thing.
Yep.
So it shows all that. Basically blue collar hunting, it's all it comes down to.
Sure.
And we show that. So
Yeah.
That's how it comes down.
And that's something that the hunting industry hasn't shown for years and years and years,
No. I mean, we show misses, we show kills, the highs, the lows, name it, it's on there.
That's cool. So Carbon TV and YouTube as well? Plans to putting it on YouTube possibly?
They have a little bit of YouTube stuff. Like I have me and one of my partner, Cody Smith, we made a Matthews promo video, short clip. It's on YouTube right now, and it also is on Carbon TV.
I saw that. That was really good. So for you guys that are wondering and wanting to follow along with Working Class Hunter, they have a really nice Instagram page that I follow, Facebook page, and they are, like I would say, on the fringe of having a very rock star season, given some of the trail camera pictures that you've been showing me. Holy crap.
Yeah, no kidding.
So it's better than anything you and I got jiving on right now. Which that's totally fine. You and I usually, it's kind of like shit in our hand until...
well, that was like... So we were putting
October,
up some stands today and like cameras, and literally every single buck that we've ever killed and like found the sheds and had the history, the whole 9 yards, never had a velvet picture of.
Yeah.
Not a single buck that me and you have ever harvested.
No.
That's usually how it
last
works.
year could have been the first year.
Could have
been.
Right. But that's also because like the size of the farm, right? Majority of our pieces are pretty small.
Yeah.
And I think I'm a big believer that a buck, a white-tailed deer, especially in our area, has a very strict like summer home range, and then it shifts to like a fall home range. I mean, I don't know. All I know is that the velvet pictures that we've got on deer on the other farms, which are smaller, those deer evaporate. And then the deer that we hunt every year after year, like I said, the ones we get history with, show up hard-horned. But on that big piece that we just got, I mean, how far do you think that deer moved from velvet to hard-horn picture? It was like 1,000 yards.
Steven?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say over.
Easy.
Yeah, over a half a mile, I would say.
And it was like consistent. Like we had him in velvet, boom, 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 boom. We were all jacked up. He stripped his velvet.
And then...
Seriously, we have pictures of the velvet falling off. He still stayed there for like maybe 3 or 4 days. Yeah, and then it was boom, gone. But we had cameras on the way other end. I mean, way like fringe of like where we could
the
hunt.
property line, yeah.
Yeah. And this farm is very large, like I said. And then
how many acres is it?
It's about just over 400.
400. That's a pretty good farm. I have a property that's family friends. We go down for shotgun season. It's about 400 give
Yeah.
or take, and it's
Yeah.
them deer can be either on it or off of it, just like that.
Yeah, I don't know. You think
You think they stay, but they don't.
right. But it was just really interesting, and we know where this deer went. Like we know
Yeah.
where he went, but it wasn't on us. Like he was
Right.
on us. He went from being on us in the summer, I would say 85% of the time or more, to like when season rolled around, I bet he was on us 20% of the time.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
It's crazy, just like that. But we had other deer move in, which, if
We
you guys tuned
capitalized
into
on
the
a
launch
little bit.
party last night, you saw that.
Yeah. Speaking of the launch party, the Last Breath Huntcast, this podcast that you guys are listening to now, is brought to you by Last Breath Media. So if you guys would like to check our hunts out on YouTube and Carbon TV, that's the two places they're living in. Huge shout out to the Inner Circle. Huge shout out to everybody on our Facebook and Instagram pages for voting us for the 3 Carbon Awards that we were nominated for. That's going to be a huge honor if we're able to get one, if any. So that's awesome. That'd be a really cool feather in the cap for us. So we wanted to thank you guys for taking the time out of your schedule and your busy lives to vote for us. We really appreciate that. The last thing before we get going here, like I said, you can watch our hunts on YouTube and Carbon TV. Every Wednesday, we're going to be bringing you guys a Last Breath Live episode. So this Wednesday, Garrett and I just actually this morning, before Andrew got here, went and hung up 3 different sets of deer stands, and we kind of walked through the strategy behind why they are where they are. And that's going to be happening every Wednesday all season long. So when Garrett goes on his elk hunt, boom, Last Breath Live. You guys are going to be able to see that. Him, Jeff, and Chris when they go out there. And then all the whitetails throughout the year when we are successful or fling one over one's back or
successful or struggling.
yeah, successful or riding the struggle bus. You guys will be able to see that every Wednesday. Every Thursday, our Throwback Thursday episodes. And all of our bucks over 165, I think all 8 or 9 of them, we're holding on to those, and we're going to be releasing those in the fall. And then our new episodes, which if you guys are in the Last Breath Inner Circle, you watched our launch party last night. There's 6 more of those, and we'll be able to show you guys those coming up, and we'll let you guys know when we decide to launch those. So our controversial topic, you guys ready to dive into it?
Born ready,
Yeah.
All right.
I guess.
So our controversial topic for episode 52 and 53, I want to make sure it's clear that this is a 2-part episode. So Andrew's going to be sticking around for both of them, and we are going to, he suggested it. We were wondering how long it was going to take us for us to dive into this topic, and we're going to talk about mechanical versus fixed broadheads. There is a lot of controversy surrounding mechanical and fixed broadheads. So during part 1, we're going to talk specifically about mechanical broadheads. Advantages, disadvantages, good stories, bad stories. And in part 2, we're going to talk about fixed. So let's go ahead and without further ado, let's get rolling. So number 1, what broadheads are you guys going to shoot this season? Andrew, go ahead and take it away.
Well,
I know what one's Garrett's shooting.
yeah. Well, we're sponsored by Rage, so I'm going to try the Rage Tri-Pan. If I have while I'm shooting my compound, I will have a Rage Tri-Pan ready to rock and roll.
Sure.
But I'm very, very partial to Schwacker broadheads. Very, very partial. But I'm going to have a Rage up front, Rage rock.
I'll
Sure.
be honest with you, man. Like Rage makes a good head. I think that they have a lot of negative denotation just because there's so many heads out there. Like
Bingo.
I bet you, I love NAP. We've shot them literally before we were even endorsed by them. They make a great broadhead, but I bet you Rage sweeps the numbers. Like if you were to see it like statistic, like how many people shoot Rage compared to other ones, I bet it's pretty impressive. And the reason being, like, even if you have like 2% of the people have a negative response to the product, well, 2% of like Rage's sales is probably a lot larger than like 2% of Swackers or Severs or Rocket or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And everybody makes a good head. Asterisk. Right there.
Yep.
Right. Like almost everybody does. But the reason why I think there's more negative stuff thrown around about Rage is because there's been more people shoot them. Right. But I think honestly that when they went to that hypodermic ferrule, which is on the Tri-Pan,
Yep.
it's minimalistic. It flies really well.
Yep.
We shot them actually before we
Did you?
started working with NAP.
Yep, the year before,
the
yeah, it was when
proprietary hypodermic head. So because they came out
with
originally.
that collar, no.
No
It was the
collar.
last year with the rubber band.
With the rubber
the
band.
grommet,
No, they had a collar.
Did they?
Mhm.
Was it a plastic collar?
Yep.
Plastic?
Yep. The hypodermics had a collar.
The
Yep.
year before that, I think we shot.
So the way that the Rage Evolution worked for us,
Chisel
we
tip?
we were on the bandwagon right when they came out, man.
Yeah, right when I was
Like the original
14 or 15.
Yeah, they
It
had
was
the
like-
original
it was
practice
like
head.
2004, wasn't it?
Yeah,
2004, 2006,
Yep.
that time frame.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy
was-
to think about.
That was it, because back then they were like this big around, it seemed like, and they had like
gray. Yep.
red and whatever.
Yeah.
Well, then
whatever
they
you wanna look at it.
Then they started doing all the different fancy colors and stuff. But like the tried and true, the very first Rage heads that came out, they were gray, like you said, like anodized aluminum.
Yep.
Every one of them had the little bleeder blade on the end,
Yep.
the cut on contact tip, and they all had the exact same blades that you could put in there. And they all came with that blue practice head. Remember that?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And the biggest hack
The
that we thought
blue
we had
practice.
we'd worked the system is that you could
Yeah.
turn that into a regular broadhead. You took out those like practice blades and put in
Yeah.
replacement blades. We thought we were like, the cool
We're
kids.
so
on-
smart.
Yeah. So.
You guys thought you guys were the Bass Joes in the block.
Oh yeah, yeah. And dude, I mean, so that for the evolution of them, then they went to like their chisel tips and their extreme, and they started to really try to expand on their product line. I think that's where some of the worst product experiences happened with them. You know, they went to that yellow ferrule, the Rage Extreme. I shot that. I mean, the blades were really big, and just if you don't have the right setup, it's not going to work for you. And the blades were thin. They didn't have a lot of backing to them. I mean, again, we'll get into like a negative experience about that, but
I have some negative experiences. I've never personally shot a deer with a Rage ever, because I never shot a mechanical until like, I don't know, probably like 4 or 5 years ago.
wow.
Give or take. I've always shot fixed.
Yep.
So I'm curious to see. I want to shoot a doe with one just to see what the hype's all about. Honest to God, truth.
I think you'll be impressed. Now, one thing to remember is like the tri-pan, the blades are designed to bend and not break. So a lot of people will be frustrated, like, the blade bent or the blade, is misshaped or whatever.
It's made to swivel.
Correct. But the blade specifically, the metal, if I'm saying this right, and if I've seen the literature is correct, like those blades are made of a different product so that they'll be forgiving. Because I would rather, being a hunter, I'd rather have a blade that's bent but still has the ability to cut than something that snaps off. And now your 2-inch cut went to 1.5 inches or went to 1 inch, or it's one side. You get what I'm saying? So
Makes sense.
I would keep that in mind. But I'm telling you, again, I love NAP broadheads. I will tell everybody about my experiences with them and the luck that we've had with them. But that hypodermic, that tri-pan, that design is a really, really good design.
Yeah. So for you and for my quiver is going to be loaded with some of these this year. So this is the NAP Kill Zone. Matt got us on these about 8 or 9 years ago, and I've been shooting a combination of those and the Spitfire ever since. So these are the trophy tips, so they're quote unquote bone splitting. It's not the cut on contact tip, but so that's what I'm shooting. So what model of Schwacker is that? Is that the Schwacker you're going to shoot this year, Andrew?
That's the OG.
This is the OG. This is the, I don't cut anybody. This is the original. There's a story why the blades are all bent up and all that fun jazz.
Oh, yeah.
But no, this is the head I'll be shooting this year. It'll be in my quiver. At least one of them. At least one is the Levi Morgan series Schwacker. It's got the curved blades just like those do. Because when those hit bone, they'll slice and dice. They won't like hit a bone and deflect like this. It'll just go around and keep going.
Oh, I got you.
That's the main focus of it, right?
Yep.
Sure.
Yep.
But
Front deploying too.
Yep. It goes in small, but it comes out huge. So I like passers, and that's the reason why I shot these, because I've heard great things about it. Every deer last deer I shot a decent 8-point with my bow. It's 4 years ago now, because I went 3 years without killing a deer with my bow. Dry spell, not fun. But I was shooting one of the old green ones, and I shot him forward, according to me, and laid it right up, pretty much up the top of his shoulder, and laid it right through him, and it came out by his back hatch. And I mean, I could put my fist through that exit hole.
With one of the Levi Morgan ones?
No, the originals.
So I think the biggest thing for me when you're talking about, and don't get me wrong, we'll talk about this with mechanicals, but as far as path-throughs or 2 holes, I think your arrow build is more important than what's on the end of it.
Absolutely.
And that's something that took
Good
us
point.
a little bit to understand, because when I first got into compound bows, it was like, I wanted a fast bow. I wanted the freaking thing to get there, lights out quick.
Yep.
And I was shooting something probably I shouldn't have my setup. I was running a really fast bow with an extremely light arrow. Easton used to make it's called the flat line. They were like 7.2 grains an inch.
With a monster.
Yeah, the monster.
The original Matthews monster. Yeah.
And it was just, I don't know. I loved it, but
we shooting 80 pounds out of that Matthews monster.
No, I wasn't then. I'm creeping up there now, but by the way, we can't get too freaking like hot topic here with this guy, because for all you viewers out there, Andrew's a big son of a bitch. Like, I don't want to tussle with this guy, man. You know, so
he's like if Garrett and I were to have a baby. Now, don't make that weird, but I'm just saying he's like a combination of us. He's tall like me, but he's freaking yoked like you. I wouldn't.
And he's got your beard.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
See,
I just trimmed it down, man.
Yeah.
Don't give me that shit. I had to look presentable. I look like a grizzly bear before I came here.
So back to the broadheads, right? I think you'll be really impressed with the tri-pan. Shoot a doe. I think you'll be really happy. I think it'll zip through it like butter.
I've seen the tri-pan. I've seen great things. So I've never personally shot one with a rage ever. And I've known all my buddies have shot deer, and they blow through shoulders, and they're just devastating. But I want to see it for myself.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I mean, you're talking. Your Swacker is in your blood. You love them.
Yeah.
You got the Rage Tri-Pan, and we won't get into some of the other things in there because then we're talking about part 2 of this.
Yeah, part 2.
But what Grant was alluding to is like the Killzone is made by NAP. It's a very similar style broadhead to Rage. Mm-hmm. The only difference is that forever and ever, the Killzone really hasn't changed in design for 12 years.
It's tried and true, man.
It does not have a O-ring or a spring clip, or I shouldn't say spring clip, plastic clip. They're all internal metal spring clips, so the tension, what holds the blades in, is all internalized. And we've never had any issues with them falling or opening.
I think the thing that I like most about the Killzone is the only difference that I can see between the Killzone and like a Rage Hypodermic or a Rage Chisel Tip. There's lots of broadheads that look like this, right? There's lots of broadheads that have 2 blades, a straight 2-blade expandable that are around that 2-inch cut. And what I like about the Killzone is the Rage has a slip cam. So for those of you guys watching our video podcast on YouTube right now, if you take your hands and kind of make an X with them, with a Rage, there's a little bar right in the center that the blades tuck and fold up into when they're in the shooting position, not when they're in the deployed position. But when you push down on the sleeves, like the outside of the blades that actually deploy out the back, they're not both on the same ferrule. Like you can push one blade down and out before the other blade comes down and out. And I like how the NAP is fixed, and they both go.
They'll come out,
and they both go. And that's why I like that one. But so your broadhead's going to be pretty much the same as mine, right? Spitfires and Killzones?
Yep. I mean, the biggest difference between the Killzone and the Spitfire is I would say 2-blade versus 3-blade. And then rear deployment versus front deployment. So like Killzones are rear deployment, where Spitfire, some guys really do shy away from those, but they fold over the top.
Yep.
So they're like instead of a back blade open, they're a fold open, if you will. But we've had a lot of success with both of them. And before we get any further, I think it's important to note, I don't care what broadhead you shoot. I don't care if you're shooting any of them.
Thank you for saying it.
But shot placement is what kills deer. Like, I've said it before on the podcast, and it's a big pet peeve of mine. You'll have somebody that'll come and you'll start talking, and as most hunters or archers will start talking about broadheads, they'll immediately start bashing a broadhead, and it'll be because of lack of recovery or not. You didn't have the harvest that you wanted. Well, when I hear I hit him perfect and I never found him.
You did hit him perfect, bud.
No, thank you. And I don't. Just my knee-jerk reaction. You're like, then you didn't hit him perfect, but you can't say that because then you get into
it. They feel bad, and you're the asshole.
Oh yeah, you're the bad guy. But it's like, man, you can kill a deer arguably with a field point if you hit him right.
Arguably,
oh yeah,
yeah. But like,
take a little longer, but
like this, well, if you tell me if this didn't open up a kill zone right here, you still have, I would say, at least a minimum of a 1/2 inch cut right?
If you sink that thing in the lungs, it's dead deer. No matter
And it
what.
doesn't open, right?
Yeah, dead deer no matter what.
Yeah, exactly. So that's
Or a heart shot.
or a heart shot.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, if you hit him in the double lungs heart shot with any broadhead, you should recover the deer, whether the blades break or don't open or any of the above.
Which for part 2, I got, well, for the bad side things, I'll get in discussion on what happens when stuff goes bad with mechanicals. We'll go into that later, but I've seen some stuff happen like that.
Yeah, exactly. And then, but then if you have a story like that where you say, man, broadhead X, I do not trust those anymore. And she's like, I shot this deer. I knew I hit him or her well, and we started blood trailing. It seemed like the blood trail was really minimalistic. And then we recovered the deer, and seemed like it went a lot further than it should have. And we rolled it over, and it's like, this broadhead didn't open.
Yep.
Now you have my interest. Tell me more. Explain to me what broadhead you were using.
Yep. Get your podium ready and start telling me what you think went wrong here.
Hell yes. And but give me more details about it. I mean, stuff's made of metal, right? If you leave your broadheads in a wet ass area and they're all rusted and corroded, and are they going to perform? I don't know. I can't tell you that.
Well, my buddy I filmed with, Cody, he shot one with rage this year. That buck he shot with rage this year. That thing was like 6 years old and had rust on the blades. He had one broadhead left, and he shot that big buck, and he drilled that buck. And I mean, as soon as you hit it, you saw it in footage. I mean, it was just spraying blood. He went in, half his arrow went in, because rages, you don't really go punch full blown past with rage. It's usually the entry hole. It's huge, and it performed. I was like, damn.
See, and like right there, that again, that's a good testament. Like, you have an older broadhead that maybe he neglected, and it still works. That's a good story.
It worked. It definitely worked, because that buck's on his wall right now. So,
yeah. Wanted to bring up a stat really quick before we go into the next topic, which is kind of we've already touched on, and that's what do you think of like as an iconic mechanical broadhead brand? I think like your Ford, Chevy. Dodge would be kind of
Chevy Dodge in the U.S. is probably tops.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like that duo.
Yeah.
That's a hard one though with broadheads, because everybody's different.
Right. That's true. But when I think of like notable broadheads, like a person who is just getting into hunting, and he's like, well, what's the top 3 I should look at? For me, I think that the broadhead line. I think that Rage has got quite a few really tried and true broadheads. I think NAP's got a few tried and true broadheads. I think that
Muzzy always does, like the Muzzy G5. I'm on a big.
The Trocar.
Or
what are you talking about? The G5
expandables.
Yeah, that's the Trocar.
Yeah. No, what is it called? I'm not real familiar with G5 products.
You're talking G5.
G5, yes.
Yes, so G5, their fixed blade is like the Monotech, I believe, and then they have a Striker.
What's their mechanical?
the dead meat.
No, I'm not familiar with G5 products, so that's why I was asking.
Me neither.
Because there's a lot of people that shoot those back where I'm at in my area. So.
Oh, the Havoc.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just like that, but it's got a bigger.
Yeah, the ferrule's a little bit fatter.
Yeah.
It's a little wider.
Yeah.
Yep. Havoc had a lot. I mean, Michael Waddell and the Bone Collector shot him for a while.
Yep. And T-Bone.
Kind of helped.
Would you rather have a sliver or a T3 chunk? I remember that.
Yeah.
T3 chunk.
That was a good commercial.
I think that there's Slick Trick is out there a lot.
Slick Trick.
I hear a lot about the Raptor Trick and
Magnus. Magnus is
a good
out
one.
there.
Mm-hmm.
Ramcat.
Grim Reaper, Wasp.
Ooh, Ramcat. I mean, Grim Reaper's an old one too.
Yep.
Axe
I remember
broadheads.
Those were huge in like 2010.
Grim Reaper. Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because they were like
Huge.
one of the first big expandables to kind of come
Oh, yeah.
online, and the great big three blade, and they looked mean when they opened up. They had like that
Oh, yeah.
two-tone ferrule.
Yeah,
they just
they looked
looked mean.
Looked real
Yeah. You said Ramcat. I think Ramcat makes actually a really good broadhead.
Yeah, their head's pretty badass. Not gonna
Dirt
lie.
Nap makes a good broadhead, but their DRT head is fixed, and that's kind of what put them on the map.
I think they came out with a mechanical.
Did
though.
they? Okay.
A hybrid.
Sure they did.
Right.
Dead
Is it a
Dead
three-
Ringer. Dead Ringer was
Is that a
thumping
three?
hard.
Is that a 3-blade mechanical or is it 2-blade?
I think it was a 2-blade. If I remember right, it was like it's like a mini DRT with bleeder blades that opened
okay,
up.
that's what I'm thinking about.
I could be wrong though.
I can picture it in my head, kinda. what it was. It's been a while though.
I'll tell you, this is for part 2, and I don't think they have a mechanical one, but a really nice fixed blade broadhead is Exodus. The same people that make QAD, they make an Exodus broadhead.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like when you put
I've seen like a picture of one in like an article.
So majority, I think it's actually like kind of like their calling card, if you will. But when you screw your broadhead onto your arrow, and the shaft actually goes up into it, so your blades stick down probably like a 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an inch down past
That's
the
for
actual
stability,
insert.
to stability reasons.
Yeah, so it's I mean it's pretty. I don't know. There's a lot of good companies at VIP.
Yeah.
We couldn't say Whitetail Legacy Podcast love their VIP Veteran Innovative Products broadheads. Iron Will has a lot of
Iron Will, yeah.
Iron Will is.
They just came out
They got it going
semi
on.
recently.
They're
Yeah.
so expensive.
Mhm.
I mean,
for three heads in a case to store them to be fancy, it's a big chunk of change.
yeah, man.
Right.
I mean,
But they're like guaranteed not to break.
right. Solid broadheads is another one that's really expensive.
Solid broadheads, yeah.
I guess,
Anything like that.
but I don't know. I'm running out of
Sure, I
options
think
here.
that pretty much covers it. The inner circle, which if you guys are not in the inner circle, there's about 470 people in there now. So thanks for joining up. Well, that's our Facebook group, and I took a poll 2 weeks ago, and I wanted to know what percentage of you guys are shooting fixed versus mechanical. So 42% of the inner circle is shooting fixed broadheads, while 58% are shooting mechanical broadheads. So
Interesting.
yeah,
It
so
is interesting.
a little bit more people on the mechanical side, but there was still quite a few people that whipped the fix. So lots of people shot muzzies, lots of people shot thunderheads was what I kept seeing as the fixed choice. But I just want to rip through these really quick. The mechanical guys. So Andrew Wicks, he's going to be shooting the NAP Spitfire in the double cross. Brandon Burleson has been, he said he's shooting the Rage Hypodermic, and he hasn't had a reason to switch. Jake Slicker, he's shooting the Wasp drone. Austin Vincent shooting the Rage Tripan. Jeremy Dorsey shooting the mechanical Wasp SST. Nate Clark's shooting a fixed Magnus Black Hornet 100 grain. I need to check that one out. I'm not super familiar with that one, Nate. My boy Pete Gentry, he's shooting the VIP Combat Veteran. That's a mechanical.
4-blade.
Yep. Chris
blade.
Milley shooting the Rage Extreme Chisel Tip. Jordan Bales shooting the mechanical Sever 1.7 and 2.0. So I've heard a lot of good things about Sever recently. Grim Reaper, that's Wayne Gadley. Jan is shooting a Dirt Nap DRT, so we're going to talk about him in episode 2. Aaron Metz is shooting a fixed as well. Nick Green is shooting a Dead Ringer. Muzzy Trokar,
Five
lots of people that got slick tricks. Lots of people. Steve Jennings with G5 Dead Meat. Another hypodermic user with Tim Curtis. Zach Foster said same thing about Rage, and I've got another Rage with Cody and Schwacker. Here's a Schwacker.
Yeah.
We got Michael Main shooting NAP Mechanical. Austin Meyer and Clark Cummings are both shooting their Raptor Trick by Slick Trick. Tim Doherty's a fixed guy, and Joe Sutherland is shooting a fixed mechanical, which is the the combat veteran
Hybrid.
by NAP,
That's
which is the hybrid. Yeah.
So be a cut on contact head up front with the mechanical in the back.
See, with
Yeah.
you guys working with Faradyne, I would shoot that Muzzy Trokar.
It's pretty mean looking, isn't it?
It is badass looking. It's got a ferrule very similar to like the hypodermic, and it has the blades almost identical to it. But you do have that comfort, I'll say, of the never fail option.
Yeah,
Because it has
Call
that
on contact.
Is
head
it
up
like
front.
I think it's 3/4 inch at the front,
I believe so.
something like that. But
Something
man,
like
they
that.
look mean.
Looks mean,
Like,
but
it
I'm
look
curious.
mean.
I'm curious to see kill shots and see what penetration's like with them though.
Right.
Because if something
If they're that
something-
fat up front.
yes. Because if something goes wrong, you ain't gonna go in that far. Even though if you have a double-edged sword, it still ain't gonna go in that far.
Which brings us to our next one. You guys segued into this next one perfectly, and that is, what is something that deters you? Like if you were just a brand new broadhead user and you were going to pick one off the shelf and you knew a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You've heard your buddies talk. You've heard them talk about what their favorite heads are. As a new user of a broadhead, what would be something for a mechanical now that would deter you from choosing a broadhead? I know my answer, but Garrett, you want to take this one first this time?
I'm letting him do it first.
Okay, go for it,
all
Andrew.
yours.
So why I would not pick it?
Yeah, why? What would shy you away from picking like a certain mechanical, just in general?
Well, just the whole build of the broadhead. You know, it's got to look beefy. It's got to look like if you hit by hit a bone, it ain't gonna like, bend up and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And if I see some reviews, I'm a picture guy, so I have to be able to visually see like, okay, that looks nasty. Like that was a 2-inch wound channel, and a
Right.
deer, or just something like that. But let's try it. Something like that. But that's
Sure.
the main two things I would look for.
The build, just
Yeah,
visually,
visually.
like, can this thing take a hit?
Yeah, pretty
It's
much.
like looking like at
Pretty
a
much.
cornerback on the football team versus the linebacker. You want the linebacker.
Yeah.
Garrett?
I will try to not get on a tangent now, but I think I've evolved companies do a great job of marketing their products. And I think early on as a young hunter, I was really starstruck by all these fancy torture tests that these companies came out with. There was a point in a time where like you don't even think like mechanical broadhead companies were trying to kill deer, but they were like, look how fast we can drain a gallon of milk. And like we shot this broadhead through 3/4 inch plywood, or we shot this broadhead through a 55-gallon drum. And I ate it up.
You're like, holy shit.
But it's when it comes to reality, it's like I don't shoot milk jugs. I don't shoot plywood. I don't shoot metal drums. I shoot deer. Like I need to know how it's going to work.
Deer and turkey and stuff with flesh.
Yeah. So I think to me, what you were talking about, Andrew, when I look at a broadhead, the construction of it is important, and not so much like is it made of titanium or phosphorus or something off the wall crazy that makes it super fancy, but like to me, does that head look like it's going to be able to go through media well? And then and we've had the ability to kind of, and you've been to the ATHO shoe, right? When you talk to the people at the company and they start going into like the design concept and the science behind it, the energy transfers, or the reason why the blade angle is this, or they have the pivoting angle is here, or the pivot pin is here. That's really cool and interesting because like, okay, you're a hunter and now you're applying like
Physics.
kinetic energy and physics, into this. Like you're using your mind.
You're
and that's,
sciencing the shit out of it.
yeah, that's important to me. And I just know like when I was younger, I was like, man, a big broadhead is so forgiving. Like the biggest cut I can get is what I need, because it's gonna be the most forgiving. I just kept thinking of that, like biggest margin of error, and it's not. You were hitting on. A lot of people don't shoot the right setup to be able to really penetrate right adequately with a big mechanical. And what do I consider a big mechanical? 2 inches or bigger.
Yeah.
Like I will not shoot something 2 inches or bigger than 2 inches. Like after that, I don't need anything more. Like I don't need a 3-inch cutting diameter. I don't need 4 total surface inches of cutting. Like if you can't get it done with 2, you're not going to be able to get it done with 3.
Well, you got to think about 2. Anything past 2, you lose kinetic energy.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. And that's where like there was this facade and this attraction when I was younger, like these extreme broadheads or the mega series broadheads. Like we've got the biggest blades on the market, or it's got 4 blades that are just going to increase your chances to cut it like an art. And I don't see it. So, I think to me when I look at the construction, is the ferrule minimalistic? Are the blades thick? And does it make sense how it functions to me? That's what I'm looking for in a mechanical.
Yeah, I kind of agree with both of you, and I'm going to hybridize my answer to kind of fit. When I look at a broadhead, my simple go-to test visually, if I want to shoot it or not, is there an excess amount of stuff going on with this? Like we've all seen broadheads that are like nasty, super big, that you're just like, well, yeah, a blade deploys out of the top and the side, and we got one on the underneath side of the belly here of the ferrule and on the top side, and I'm like,
or they're like, it's a spring-loaded tip that's
whoa,
whoa.
Yeah. And we're like, holy mother! Like, there's a lot of things going on here.
There's a lot of things going on there. It looks like inside of a robot kind of.
Yeah.
Yep, it's something that could fail. That's all I see.
Yeah,
it's like a lot that can go wrong.
Yeah, if you've got 3 or 4 moving parts in anything, I would rather, if you're getting the same results out of the one that's got, a 10% bigger cut, but it's got 4 or 5 moving parts on it versus one that has 1 or 2 moving parts on it, I'm going to pick the more minimalistic one, like you said, Garrett. So I think we covered that topic pretty well. So mechanical broadhead success stories. You're thinking of a time where we're going hunting and you've got like that mechanical broadhead, you're drawn back, boom, you shoot. Holy shit. Look at all that blood. The blood trail is incredible. The deer went down possibly in eyesight, possibly on the spot, within 10, 15 yards. What does that success story look like? So, Andrew, you want to start us off? What's your mechanical broadhead success story?
Well, the most recent one was that deer I was telling you about. It was about 3-4 years ago. 4 years ago now, because I went 3 years without shooting a deer with my bow. He came in, and it was like first part of November, came in, typical came in, I look up, seen it was a shooter. First glance, it was a shooter. Ground shrinkage was really the real effect that day.
Sure.
But he came in, he was according to me. I didn't think he was more broadside, and I was shooting that schwacker I showed you guys, and it was the original green one, and I tucked it up the top of his shoulder and ran it right down through him. And I mean, it happened so quick that I couldn't find my arrow. I don't know where it was. A plaster. I just don't know where it went. It was buried, probably buried underneath the leaves. I couldn't find it at all. So when I backed out, buddy came, we went and looked for it, couldn't find blood, and all of a sudden he said, "Hey, I got blood." I'm like, "Let's see it." I'm like, "Where's it at?" I look up, I'm like, "Oh, that's good blood." It's like 5 foot by 5 foot this way on one side. Everything's just sprayed. It looked like you had a 5-gallon bucket and just throwing blood on everything.
Yeah.
He went it was downhill, so he went like 60, 100 yards depth, but downhill. Of course, he dies in the biggest ravine in the farm.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Every freaking time.
I mean, he's about my size, and we had a 4-wheeler the winch. We had a hell of a time getting him up there.
Oh, man.
He was dead within like 2 seconds. I double lunged him, and he was. I mean, I was like, that's when I was like, that was my first deer I shot with any mechanical, and I was like, wow,
I'm sold.
wow. I went home and I showed my dad. And he's like, "You get one?" He knew I got one. He came over and looked at it, and he went, "Jesus, look at that hole." I'm like, "Yeah." I stuck my fist down through it, and he's like, "Give me one of them heads." So I'm like, "Okay, go get one." And they're downstairs in the bat cave, so go get it.
What's yours?
So I'm going to, because Jesse is coming for next episode, which is the fixed part, I'm going to talk real briefly about his, because he and Matt's kill, which if you're watching the video version, I'm going to dig up this kill, and it's the sickest hole I've ever seen ever. It looks like Jesse and Matt, the night that they killed this deer, Jesse shoots her, and it's like a frontal shot at like 20 yards. And Matt shot a buck frontal with an NAP too, and it went right down. And that's another controversy in and of itself, so we're not going to dwell on a frontal shot. But it looked like Jesse had taken a hatchet,
Samurai sword,
and thrown it at the front of this deer. She went about 80 yards and tipped over, and the hole, I'm serious, and you can watch the video version of this. I do not know what the time marker is that we were on here, but it is a legitimate 8-inch hole. It's like it went in there, fletchings deep, and it just chopped. It was the most incredible entrance hole I've ever seen in my whole life. So I wanted to tell that story for Jesse. You know what video I'm talking about.
Yeah, and he
It's
was shooting
crazy.
the NAP sling blade.
Yep.
Which is it's a kill zone. The difference between like the proprietary kill zone and the sling blade is that the sling blade, the pin is fixed and it's more centralized. So the blades don't drop like on a kill zone. It pivots and the blades lock in. But when the blades open, they're pressure activated, right? So anytime it passes through media, they open, and it allows those to pivot, right?
Yeah, right.
So Jesse really likes the sling blade, where like when this comes back, it locks the blades in, which some guys don't like that. Some guys do like that.
I would prefer to be locked in, but rather than swiveling around like that.
So because the sling blade, it shuts flat. This isn't a good representation of how it is, but yeah, I mean, I think what happened is that she was ducking when he shot. It opened, and it cut down as she ducked down.
Yep.
Because
it moved with her when she was moving. It moved with her.
man, like
It was
we had to cut the
nasty.
footage out because it was so like we were like, man, this is questionably graphic. Because he went to go like grab her and like
a big murder scene.
Oh yeah, like he picked up her front leg and it just like opened it all up. Like wow,
It looked like you field dressed her. I'm
Yeah.
not kidding.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, look at the footage right at like after we get done recording.
That
this.
was
It was
impressive.
insane. That was the most impressive thing for him.
I've seen something like that, but it was with a fixed blade, and the deer
run it
turned
down the side of it.
Yeah, the deer turned the last second. It was one of my friends from back home. He turned the last second, and I'm like, this is back at his truck. I went and seen it, and I'm like, what'd you do? Shoot this thing with it? What'd you do? Take a samurai sword to this poor little doe? He goes, no. I'm like, what'd you shoot with? He's like, told me whatever head he was shooting. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, she turned the last second. She heard my string or something like that.
And just
I'm
run
like,
it right down the side.
Yeah,
of
I
her.
mean, went right, pretty much started at the base of her back leg and ran right up. And it was angled quarter away, so he drove the arrow and he double lunged her. But still, I mean, it just laid her open like she field dressed, but it was on her side.
right.
And I was like, wow.
Yeah. My
crazy.
success story was not so much as, we shoot a deer. I think I know what you're going to pick, Garrett. I'm not sure, but I think I know. Maybe.
I think I know which one you're.
I think I know which one you think Anyway, we'll get to that in a second. But my success story was the first year that we started shooting NAPs, and I had a lot of mechanical broadhead successes that year, and the one that particularly is in my mind is Garrett and I were hunting, and it was an old version of, if you guys have ever watched any of our videos, we have this old elevated ground blind that we built like when I was in college and he had just got out of college, and it was the first permanent blind we ever built. And there was a doe that was about 37 yards, which is the furthest side to shot a doe at that time. Later in that season, I shot one at 42 with the same head, not the same broadhead, but the kill zone as well. And this doe is quartering away, and she's quartered fairly hard. And I tuck it, and when a deer is quartered away, then if you're quote unquote back,
Tucking it right in the last rib.
you know what I'm saying? If you're back, then you could potentially be in that liver, like last rib kind of area. And I did. I hit her right in the front of the liver and onside lung. So it would have just clipped one lung. And it was a big doe. It was about 170-ish pound doe.
Big doe.
And I've been impressed with all the bucks that I've shot with the NAP heads. But this doe, it was not I know that we're calling this a success story, but it wasn't a great shot. It was an okay shot. Just being transparent and honest with you guys, it was an okay shot on my part. It was a couple inches back of what I wanted it to be rather than a double lung, but she ran and she went about 50 yards and tipped over. And that's when I knew, okay, if I have this much amount of forgivingness with this particular broadhead, with this mechanical broadhead, that's the reason why I think, like you were talking earlier, the forgiving factor of a mechanical, that's one of the big benefits, which I don't want to cut our knees out. We'll get to that in a second. So you go ahead and share your success story.
So mine was the first time I shot a big deer with my bow. And I was with you. I mean, it was a brute buck.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a success and fail all in one, which would be a perfect transition. That's why I wanted to go last. The broadhead was a Rage 100 grain extreme. They were the old yellow ferals. And this was, again, when I was telling you, I was starstruck by, the bigger the better, right?
Bigger the better.
And 159-inch, pretty much mainframe 8-pointer, had a cheater, an inline cheater.
a 10-inch dagger point on the inside.
It was awesome deer,
Beautiful
right?
deer.
And
Stud.
he wore us out, too, because he came out and he was, hovering at, chip shot, 19, 20 yards, but I couldn't shoot him. And when I could shoot him, Grant didn't have him right. And so this went on for a little while, and it only just added to me and my nerves. First mature deer that I had drawn on, and he steps out, he's 35 yards, and I shot, and I made a bad shot. It was bad. The deer was slightly quartering away, which thank goodness he was, but I hit him probably that liver paunch line, being honest. It was not where I was aiming. Up and down was great. But what I pulled the bow. I wanted to see my shot. I know my air now, right? You move the bow out of the way, so
You pull it to the left as a right-handed
Yep.
shooter. You pull left.
Yep, I pulled the shot left. He was facing, his head was to my right, and so that's why I hit him back. The deer runs off, and I knew immediately we had made a bad shot. We went home. It was gut-wrenching the whole 9 yards. The next morning, we get back on the trail, and that deer was dead 110 maybe yards.
Total from our stand. So we watched him. We got about a 60-yard wide field, and he goes out opposite side of the field from us, and in the woods on that side, he's like 40 yards maybe.
Right.
Just dead.
And we didn't even look for him. We just backed right out. We didn't even try to find the arrow or nothing.
I probably would have done the same thing, honestly.
Yeah. And I do think he was dead on the run, and because it did actually exit on the back of his lung. But the success story there is, again, yes, I mean, given where I hit with that shot, it was nice to have a bigger, more forgiving broadhead. The negative thing was that both of those blades broke clean off. So my exit was maybe about a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch square, which I don't know really what it would have hit to break because it did not hit bone on the way in. But my entrance was very big. But the blades I had the broadhead still. Like I said, both blades were probably broken off about a 1/4 inch from the ferrule. And so yes, it did its job. And I think through more than 50% of the deer, it did a big hole, which helped it expire quickly.
Yep.
But when it exited, those blades are just so big that, you add length, you got to take away from thickness, and there you have a not very strong blade. So kind of a good transition into what we're talking about next, right?
Yeah.
Was that deer in his first bed when he tipped over? Did he bed down and die, or did he?
I think he died on the run because when we found him, his horns were in vines.
Oh yeah, he died in a run. He was a dead deer running.
Yes.
Yep.
So.
Okay. Failure stories. So we're talking about a time that we failed using a mechanical broadhead. Hopefully, if you guys are listening right now, you still take us seriously after this one, but we're trying to be, open and honest with you guys about times that we've messed up. So hopefully everybody, if you're listening, if you've been bow hunting for any duration of time,
if you say you're perfect,
it's a crappy thing to lose a deer, and it's a thing that nobody takes lightly, and you feel like shit for weeks and weeks and weeks, even years. It's one of those memories that's burned into your brain, in the bad way. It's one of those things that you remember just because of the negative emotion you experienced during that. But let's go for a mechanical broadhead failure story. Andrew, you want to start off, or do you want me to?
You start off this time.
Okay.
You run the train.
All right. So the mechanical broadhead failure story for me, I think I
know which one it would be.
Which one?
Last year. I would love to just have a combination of different ingredients to know if it would have affected a different outcome.
Sure. Yeah, and we've talked about that. So, that's that. I was leaning on that one.
Because I don't think
we'll go.
What other one would you have?
I don't. Yeah, I think that's
way back when with milk chocolate, but I just think you hit. I don't think any different broadhead would have affected it.
That was probably just being young.
And you've never, knock on wood here, we haven't had too many instances where we boink off a shoulder.
Right.
Except for
last year. And I think that's the one I'm going to go with. So, and to be honest, this is not a mechanical broadhead failure. It is what would have happened if this was maybe a fixed broadhead. So if you guys are, watching our show for any duration of time, this year we're going to release episode number 12. And in episode number 12, I believe, that is something Garrett and I do every year, is put out mock scrape lines. And over the last 3 or 4 years, we've had a lot of opportunities, some really good deer early in October. And this last year was no different. And we set ourselves up on a scrape line that ran east-west, waited for a north wind. It was a day that we both could get out of work a little bit early. We got in the stand on Friday afternoon at about 2 o'clock, and we rattled, and it was October 23rd. And up came the deer that we wanted to kill, right down. We were on the north side of a hedgerow. So for those of you guys that are hunting in the Midwest, you know that a hedgerow, separating woods from field, or separating two fields, we were right in a hedge tree, right? And literally this deer came to 6 yards on the south end, on the south side of our stand, and made a scrape. We called him Harold. That'll be an episode that we'll show you guys. And we made the grave mistake of not cutting a shooting lane on that end as he was making a
Well, we didn't want
scrape.
to. I mean, it's not a mistake because if you guys know what a hedgerow is, it's not very wide.
No.
And we were like,
No.
man, we don't want to like every
Rob all
bit
of
of
our
cover.
right?
Every leaf we cut is like less and less.
And I thought strongly about trying to thread one through there because
How
there
close
was
it was.
some-
I mean, he was
because of
right
how
there.
close it was.
Was he like 15 yards? Like
Oh, no,
there?
like
6.
and we weren't very tall.
And we
I
weren't
mean,
very
I'm
high.
telling
we're
you
about
that
12 feet up.
Oh yeah, you're in a hedge tree then.
Yeah.
Oh
Not
yeah.
very tall.
I mean, these
Yes,
are
we're
mangly. You know what they look
Oh
like.
yeah, I have tree stands in hedge trees.
So do we. Gobble them together and
Oh yeah.
Yep.
you
And
bounce from one
They're
side
hard
to
to,
the
they're
other.
hard to, they're hard to come by now though, because all the farmers are ripping them out.
Right. Right.
Which kind of sucks, but I mean, it's what it is. What it is. But anyway,
Yeah.
So get to the bad
Yeah.
thing.
So he whirls around the gate hole that we're setting up on, just like a natural pinch point, and we grunt him in, and he lopes in. He's walking, but then he starts loping. So I have to stop him, and he's at about 24 yards when I stop him. Meh. I stop him. I shoot, and if he, I should have known, like, I've had deer do it before, typically when you stop a deer, you're alerting them.
Yeah, but
something's coming.
Given where you hit left to right, though, the dropping factor wasn't a big thing with the mechanical aspect.
Sure.
I don't think.
But I know that, like lots of you gun hunters before have hit a deer
In the high shoulder.
in the high shoulder,
And that's what stones them.
and that's what stones them, and then they puts them right down. That frontal lung shot, right at the front of the lungs. If you're in the body cavity, you're about 60 to 70% up.
Mm-hmm.
You're more towards the backstrap than you are the
Belly,
right?
yeah.
And so I shoot, and like I said, if it would have penetrated, it would have been like a double lung shot. But I just didn't have any penetration.
You hit the plate, yeah.
Yeah, I hit the scapula, which is the part on the back of the shoulder blade, and the gate was closed. And what do I mean by that? For those of you guys that kind of wait for a deer to open its onside leg, like if you're waiting for that perfect broadside shot, typically I try to wait for a deer to open the gate for me, and they take the step with their onside leg to me, and they open up like the goods, and they swing that scapula away. But just so happens that when he stopped, both of his front legs were together. That scapula was over like the front of the lung, which is where the arrow, where I put it, where I told the bow to go. So like I said, it's on me, but that's my failure story where we did not recover the deer, but luckily he didn't die. But
No.
there just wasn't any penetration at all, and we got some trail camera pictures a few weeks later, but I would say overall probably 4 to 5 inches of penetration. But it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier that I thought was a great point, and that is my arrow build at the time was a lot lighter than the current arrow build I have now. And if I could have flip-flopped, I may have had a different outcome.
Way different. I mean,
So-
completely different build than what you have now.
How many
So-
grains are you shooting up front? Like how many grains is your arrow now?
My arrow now is like, my whole setup now is pushing like 500 grains.
See, that's where you want to be. The sweet spot is between like 550. Well, anything above like 480 to 600 for compounds. Depends what kind
Yep.
of draw you're putting out, but you want that high FOC up front.
And before, though, it was like 390.
Yeah.
Super light arrow.
You're shooting
Very, very light arrow.
So like a 300. You shoot like a 400 spine arrow, like a 400
Maxima Blue RZ.
Yeah.
That's what
Maximus?
you-
Maximus?
Maxima Blue RZ.
RZs.
Yep. Super light.
Yep.
And so I think if I could have traded out for maybe a fixed or just a heavier arrow, the outcome would have been different. But what's your story, Garrett?
I said my story, I mean, luckily still, I mean, the deer that I have not recovered, I think it was because of human error, not mechanical, not equipment error, is because of me.
Right.
So like the failure that I had was with that one broadhead, and that's what I would consider a true failure. Like the blades broke, and they broke at a point where they were not continuing to do their job. Because I mean, you remember when we flipped them over, it was like a dime.
Yeah, the hole
like
was a very little.
hole. The entrance was big, but still, I mean, who knows how long it took for those blades to break. So that was my failure and success all in one.
Right.
It's kind of hybridized, right? It did have a nice wound channel on the way in, but it hit something somewhere and it broke them both.
I would assume though when it went in, it opened up.
It did.
And then it hit the ribs, and then after that, something happened because once you get to the rib cavity, there's nothing there.
Right.
That or it broke on the opposite side.
That's
Could
what
have.
I kind of think that happened.
Because what does the inside look like? Was this mush or?
Well, we field dressed him as quickly as we could because, like I said, I hit him back. Like it wasn't.
Yeah,
I mean, it was not a clean dress.
Yeah, those
No, on our end. You know what I'm saying?
Those shots like that are pretty messy.
So we just got in there and got him out. And
Yep.
I mean, I can tell you this: like the inside of the rib cage, I remember, like the hole was still small.
Yeah.
You know, like it on the inside of his ribs. So
Yeah.
it
So
broke
maybe
somewhere.
on the onside, I don't know.
I don't know. I just know that it had a nice big slap cut on that onside,
Mhm.
and I mean, we were finding good blood when we were tracking him,
Yeah.
like quarter size drops, pretty
Yeah.
easy to follow. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's my success and failure all in one.
What do you say, Andrew?
Well, it was 3 years ago. This arrow was actually the arrow that I was shooting at the time, and I was shooting a Schwacker. And I said this on the last podcast we had, was a phone call, and I said I shot, his name is Hightower, I shot him in the shoulder blade. Well, this is the head that I shot him in the shoulder blade with.
Hold that thing up to that camera.
I don't know if you can see that, but it's
just like super
it's pretty bent up.
very bent.
It's not only bent, but the entire front part of the broadhead is broken off.
Yeah. Well, and on the back side, this arrow hit so hard that it sheared off my nocturnal. It just sheared it. I don't know if you can see there or not.
So you probably hit him right in the joint.
Well, I was going for a heart shot, like I tucked it in tight because he was only like 20 yards, 25 yards, right? But it was like
Hit that
negative.
elbow
It was
joint,
like
you
it
think?
was legitimately negative 10 degrees that day. It was cold.
Well, that doesn't give you. Yeah, I mean, so
Yeah,
that's why all
right.
your equipment was. I mean, it's
Oh, yeah, it was
negative
cold.
10 degrees,
Yeah, it
right?
was cold.
Brittle.
It was cold, but when I stopped him, he had the paunch opened up. He was saying, "Give it to me," you know.
Right. Yep.
And I was shooting a different bow at the time. It was a little slower than I have now. And when he heard me, is when I pulled my bow back, I shot an old Matthews Mission. It was a Venture, a little short bow, 70 pounds. Had a whisker biscuit, and he heard that whisker biscuit. That arrow sliding when it was that cold, you can hear it. And he heard that. At the same time, my cam hit the top of my blind because I'm a tall guy, you know. And I'm
Yeah.
And that
What are you,
bow-
about
that-
6'5"?
6'3". I have my cowboy heels on right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes more sense. Then.
Yeah, I'm
When you-
6'3", so it's all right. No, but even with my new belt, I've done the same. It would have been the same exact thing. Because I was hunting in a ground blind on a platform. That's all it
Yep.
was. And then that blind's a little small for me. I needed like a XL blind to fit my big butt. But anyway, I I tucked that shoulder a little tight, and I'm guessing what happened was, and he had to hear my string because he was on edge. I mean, them deer are on pins and needles late season.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, big time. And as soon as I seen him, I went, "Oh shit!" I mean, all I seen was I just seen tines, and I have that picture book in the downstairs. It's that one I showed you. I'm pretty sure it was one of the big that big 8, that big 9. I'm pretty sure it's Hightower. I'm like 85% sure because it's just how tall he was.
Sure.
He came in and he must have put that when he went to take off. I'm assuming when he went back because I was pretty much eye level with him. So when he went back, I hit the hard part in his shoulder, not the high shoulder, the low part of the shoulder. So them two joints come together.
Yep.
Yep.
I'm assuming the way that broadhead broke right here and here, it hit and it just. It was weird though, because when I shot him, when that knock sheared off, it sounded like I smacked his other side shoulder. Because in the way the arrow went, it looked like I drilled him. I mean,
Right.
I'm like,
Yeah.
when he left, like I told you before, his belly was scraping the ground. I mean, there was like 2 foot of snow on the ground too, so keep that in consideration. But it looked
Right.
like he was lung hit. He was done. I mean, he was done.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked up there and it was getting dark,
Yep.
and I couldn't. I walked right over my arrow. I didn't even see it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I didn't see any blood. I'm like, okay, no big deal. Because usually when you don't have an exit, you don't have, with these heads like that, you don't have a real good blood trail usually. So I'm like, he's in there, he's dead. I'm like, he possibly didn't go 200 yards, if that.
Sure.
No way. Double lung hit like that, but they're pretty tough. Came back the next morning. My dad and my brother came with me, and I'm like getting cocky, like, oh, he has to be laying up there on the ridge. Has to be. I mean,
Yep.
there's a pasture next to me. It's a neighbor's. So we were looking around, and I wasn't even like 2 minutes into walking, my dad's like, hey, found your arrow. I was like, what it look like? You mean you quit walking, looking? I'm like, why? I guess I had a real puzzled look on my face. And he's like, come here, look at this. And then, I don't know if you can see this, but it's washed off now because it was gross. It was covered in blood. But about that far in, that's how far I got in.
It's about 2.5 inches.
Yeah. I mean, it was nothing. I mean, my arrow hit so hard on his shoulder. I rocked his world. I had to. I mean, he had to have been sore.
Oh, yeah,
I
guarantee. Didn't feel good.
No. So then I'm like, well, shit. So
and that's the thing, right? That's like the negative. You always wonder what would have happened if you would have had a fixed on there.
Yeah, that's why I turned to my dad exactly when I seen that. I'm like, I should have just shot what I've known my whole life and just been done with it, because I've never had that issue. I mean, I watched my dad stick a deer or two in the shoulder blade. Like I didn't see him, but he told me about it.
Pin his shoulder blade.
But I was like, back then, I mean, he was shooting bows that weren't didn't shoot as hard as fast back then. But I mean, a deer's shoulder is still pretty hard. I mean, you got to have a good sharp point and a lot of force up front to punch through. Even a big buck, you got to have a lot of force punching through, you know. So I mean, that's really my only mechanical story besides what was told to me, what happened, and what I've seen and my family members happen. But for me, that's my most recent story.
Sure.
I mean, but I wonder if I shot farther back, would have been different. You know?
Yeah.
Right.
Hi, Jesse.
Oh, Jesse's here.
This must be the Mountain Ops crew. Copying my shirt.
Shit, yeah.
Oh no, it's different. It's different.
They make a good product.
It's different. Oh yeah.
Badass T-shirts, that's for sure.
Yeah, I like it.
I like them too.
What's next on your list there, Chachi?
Yeah, the next thing on my list is the disadvantages, but we kind of already covered that. I think the biggest disadvantage of mechanical broadhead is shot placement. It's very forgiving if you hit a soft spot. There's a huge star there. Like, yes, it's forgiving if you hit a soft spot. You could whack a deer just not even through the lungs, straight liver shot, right? Through and through, and you're probably going to find him. If you rip a 2-inch hole through his liver, that deer's going to die. And if you have a single lung hit deer, a 2-inch hole is going to be more than a 1-inch hole that a fixed will offer. So I think the disadvantage of a mechanical broadhead is when you get up in the shoulder. So I think that's the disadvantage in my mind, but what do you think?
Well, the advantage, disadvantage kind of all in one here. I'm going to wrap it a little bit together. And it's, if you think of a broadside deer and, you think about the no zone for fixed, which is the shoulder, right? It's all of our negative experiences. The shoulder.
Mechanical.
Or, yes, I'm sorry, mechanical. Right. Yeah, we're talking mechanical. Sorry. So the no zone for mechanical is the shoulder, which I would consider it to be about an 8-inch wide by about a 12-inch tall rectangle.
That's fair.
Like in the front of the deer.
Yeah.
That front portion. Like that's the no zone for mechanicals. Well, I bet you that's maybe if you split up a deer up into fifths, maybe even be with just 1/6 of it.
Yeah, 15-ish% of it.
So that's where I think, yes, that's a disadvantage. But if you think of just about percentage of where you could hit a deer, given that, you've got way more forgivingness on the end of the soft side tissues that we're talking about. So it depends on where you hold, right? Deer don't have dots. Where is that spot that you settle in at? If you do naturally want to hug the shoulder, strongly consider not shooting a mechanical. Yeah. But if you're aiming for more of the forgiving area, or forbidden potentially, where you're aiming more like
the mid to rear lung.
Yeah, then I think that's your key to success, right? Because you have way more area to work with. Just like my experience with a success, I pulled it out of the way. Now, if that deer had been turned around the other way, right, where if he had been facing left and I pulled my shot left and I would have hit him in the shoulder, I think I would have had a similar experience like what you guys said. I shot him in the shoulder. It went in 2-3 inches, bounced out, blades broke, didn't find him. He left. Right.
Yeah. He lived, but...
Yeah. Right. Where I think, I think like with a smaller fixed blade, like I do think that deer will expire. Like the paunch shot, the liver shot, the bad shot. But it's going to be way harder to recover him with a small diameter like fixed blade. Yeah. So...
it's about creating trauma, right? A mechanical broadhead is going to hemorrhage a lot of blood compared to a fixed broadhead.
But the disadvantage, and like you touched on this earlier, Andrew, it's It's the penetration factor.
Yep.
And I think if somebody does want to shoot a big, beefy broadhead, a meaty broadhead, first, are you pulling the right weight? What's your draw length? Like, process your energy that you're pushing. Then dive into your arrow build. Like, you even touched on the grain range that you think, like, a lot of people have this just, like I said, starstruck, the wow, I need a big broadhead to cut a lot and just do all the bleeding and this, that, and the other. And hey, if you're pulling 50 pounds, if you're shooting a light arrow, if you haven't really dove into your setup yet, don't think that's your solution. So I think that's one of the biggest disadvantages personally is the concept that if I shoot a big broadhead, it's going to make me more lethal. Right there. I think it's that mentality. Like,
it's that mindset.
It is. It's the lack of self-education. Like the not understanding your whole setup and your build and your equipment and your energy and your speed and everything that goes in along with like lethality of your archery setup. But just, I think that is the biggest disadvantage right there, is like a big broadhead means I'm going to be easier to kill. Not a better hunter, but easier to kill something. I think that's it. I mean, because if you ask me, would I rather have 2 1-inch holes or one hole that goes in 10 inches? I'm taking 2.
Yep, you want pass-throughs.
Yeah, seriously.
Most definitely.
Bleeding out both sides. I mean, we've all hit a deer I know I have with a mechanical. I've hit I was the first bow I ever bought, actually. I was pulling 70 pounds, but it was a big broadhead I was shooting. It was a little dinky bow. It was like a PSC. I don't even remember the name of it. It was the first bow I actually bought.
It was. Do you remember that bow, Jesse? Did you know him? Yes, it was.
Yeah,
it had skull camo on it.
Skull camo on that bad boy.
It was a Bow Manus
Bow
one?
Manus, yeah. It was a little short.
My buddy had one of those.
Weighed about 3.1 pounds. And I shot a deer in like the upper lung, and
You smoked it.
Yeah, smoked her. We heard her die up a hill, and I mean, when you do not get that second pass through, like you're just talking about, like that's crucial. Like I get that the deer is going to die. I understand that, but recovering it because of lack of blood trail is huge. If you hit a deer high in the cavity and you don't get a lower exit, it's just like
that's tough.
It's tough. It's like filling up a 5-gallon bucket 4/5 of the way full and then hitting it, right at the water line.
You're waiting for it to slosh.
Yeah, you're waiting for it to slosh. And it's like, okay, we didn't find any blood. We find this deer. She's dead 80 yards away. We have no idea, though, because there's not a drop of blood, because when it's pooling up, it just falls into the downside of her cavity, and we can't find any. So that I think that's a big advantage of fixed. But let's go ahead and wrap this one up, because I think we've pretty much covered it. Would you rather, Garrett? You can go first on number 1. Would you rather shoot a deer in the liver with an expandable or the shoulder blade with a fixed?
Liver with an expandable. A liver shot will kill a deer. I promise you it will. If you understand where you hit it and don't push it, I will take that.
You just be patient.
Because, I mean, fixed blades, without a doubt, I do believe, personally, they penetrate better, especially the shoulder. But you're not guaranteed to go through that, man. Like, if that deer is tense, and if he's shifting his shoulders, and if you hit that plate, or you hit a ball joint even, like what you were saying, like if you hit a certain spot in a shoulder, there's just a lot of bone. And I don't care if you have the sharpest single bevel broadhead on the market, you still might not get through. But I know I'm going to put 2 holes in that liver, and I know I'm going to wait overnight, and I'll go find it in the morning.
Yep. Andrew?
It's a two-sided question, though. Do I get to pick my arrow grains and like my poundage, my bow?
Yeah, yeah. This is a hypothetical, man. It's a made up fantasy world.
So if I wanted to shoot a hammerhead, like a single bevel broadhead, like fixed blade,
shoot whatever broadhead you want.
I'm gonna drill that shoulder. I'm gonna power drive him. Oh yeah. Because if you think about it, if you have at least 17% FOC up front, above 17 to the highest of like mid-20s, that's high FOC.
Right.
And you're shooting over 500 grain, like a 580 grain arrow, pulling back 70 to 80 pounds on let's say a compound.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, dude, you're gonna be driving through every shoulder you see. I mean, there's people.
So you're gonna take the shoulder.
There's people that shot 50-pound recurves over in Africa and blowing through Cape Buffalo.
Not in their shoulder.
Yeah, their shoulders. Frontal shots. Frontal shots.
Frontal shots?
I want to keep
Holy
buffalo.
shit.
It's fact.
That's a fact, Jack.
Number 2, Andrew, this is for you on this time. Are you ready? Sure. Would you rather shoot your number 1 hit lister and find him a week later? So let's say, we're on the broadhead discussion. Nobody wants to make a bad shot. This is only hypothetical, so nobody hate. This is all made up. Just so you'd know. Would you rather shoot your number 1 hit lister and find him a week later, or shoot your number 3 hit lister and watch him go down in eyesight?
That's a tough one.
I know.
Well, usually my number 3 is like 120-inch 8-pointer.
Okay.
Usually. I'd probably go with the big one because it'll make me really happy by the end of the week. Because you work all week and
Right.
you're stressed out and you find something, you find the big one, but then the coyotes probably get him. He's all tore up and he smells real bad and he's really bad. But then you might find her in shed season.
But you find him a week later, so you find him during the season. But the meat, depending on the time of year,
No matter what, dude.
Probably
it's
bad.
toast.
I probably shoot my number 3 just because I watched him go down and your adrenaline is like you're like yes.
This is
Probably.
this is one of the harder ones you've had in a
Probably.
long time.
That's a hard one because
it is.
Yeah, because you have the facade of like your number 1, but then you have
antler gluttony. That's
it
what
is, but you have like that disappointment. Not so much. I mean, you recover the deer, so the end goal is still the same. But it's
still the oh, you're feeding me, huh?
But the problem is like you have that dissatisfaction. I made a bad shot. Like, did you find him? Not find him? Obviously, you look for him the next day. So I'm trying to think where would we yield an experience where we'd find a deer a week later. A week to me, that's like we accidentally find him.
Yeah, I mean,
Because there's no way you're still on blood in a week.
right?
Unless you like looked all week and then you given up and went and got a tracking dog and then somehow, shape or form, that dog picked up a scent.
Even a week.
I don't know. Tracking dog's a big deal though. If I made a bad hit on a big buck, tracking dog getting called.
Yeah, but
If it's
Call me
legal,
this year.
if it's legal in your state.
Me and Hank are gonna let her rip, buddy.
yeah.
We've been working.
How big's
been
your farm?
My biggest is
He'll
about.
cover all of it.
I'm
Don't
just
you
kidding.
worry.
My biggest is 140, but it's all cornfield pretty much. I hunt.
Right.
My spots are.
Oh man,
not the
I got to
greatest.
answer this. Jesse, what would you do?
No, you can't phone a friend. Just answer a question.
You can't call a friend. You got to answer.
This
right
isn't
now.
Who Wants to
On
Be
the
a
spot.
Millionaire.
I'm gonna get my big deer because I haven't shot. I mean, none of us have, right? We don't have this huge
is
wall
true.
of freaking like mega giants, and I think like okay, my number 1 deer every year is a really nice buck. I'm not saying my number 1 every year is a booner that big even.
Nope.
But like, you know,
He's over
got a respectable
155.
wall, and I mean,
that is a good point though.
if
a
I
good
was at a
point.
point in my life where I had like plenty of like big deer and I was like happy with my resume, if you will, I would definitely take the ethical route. I would take the high road. But right now,
No.
back row, dig in the ditch. I can buy a cape.
Right?
And like, I will always be able to tell people, like, I don't even care. Like, yeah, we pretty much given up, but we were out hunting and seen the crows and we went and checked and there he was. And like,
There he was.
this is my second biggest deer. Like, you know, I'm taking it. Sorry.
183 incher. Look at that. Yeah.
That one. I didn't watch him go down, but I found him a week later.
But think about like your
Right,
number
yeah,
one. That's what I'm
the
trying to
number
think.
one
like,
that year.
Your number
That's
one
true.
last year, like
Yeah.
our number one last year, like your number. I mean, I don't know what it was, but I'm sure it was something like wow, like this. Whoa.
Well,
I've seen that book down there.
I stuck him, but I never found him. That's my thing. If I killed every deer I've stuck, we'd have a good wall. But like I
Right.
killed them. Like I've shot a lot of deer through back straps just from living and learning, knowing geometry of deer.
Yep.
And now I know, but I don't know. I'm second guessing my answer now because I like
No,
finding
you
big bone.
Yeah.
I like your answer, Andrew. I would also take the number 3. I just feel like Garrett and I talk about this literally daily. So Clark Cummings, if you're listening right now, I think Clark Cummings is in the money. I call it the big third. And what do I mean by that? I think your lifetime is broken into 3/3 as a hunter. Okay? This is my theory. If you guys want to write this down, and I'll copyright it, and you guys can all buy my book someday.
I'll buy your
But
book.
thank you. Hey, one sale. See, tag it up. $4 profit on Amazon.
Can you sign it for me?
Yeah, I'll sign the front cover for you.
Awesome.
Yeah. I think you got 3/3, right? You got 0 to 20. in which some hunters start hunting
Most.
early when they're like 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, like all of us, right? Everybody in this room.
Yep.
And then I think you've got 20 to 40. And during the 20 to 40 time, I'm thinking in your 20s, like early 20s, you are still learning some lessons of hard knocks, but they're less occasionally than in the first third, right? Like we did some really, really stupid shit when I was 16 or 17. Like, yep, where's the wind blowing? Like, yep, it's a west wind. It's going to blow right into the bedding area to the east of us. We're going to see no deer tonight.
It's a west
But guess
wind,
what? We
but-
got a big deer on trail camera, so who cares? We're going to get a crack. Nope, we didn't.
Spray down all that
Earth.
Just a bunch of really stupid crap, right? And then you've got the middle third, which is 20 to 40. And I think the back half of that curve, like right the age that you were coming up on. So Clark Cummings, like I said, I brought up Clark's name, and it's because
I think your
he's
bracket's flawed.
But then you have
0
40
to 20, I think it should be like 10 to 30, and then 30 to 50,
I
and
don't know.
50 to 70.
because a lot of
Because you're
people don't
telling
start hunting
Clark's
till-
out of it then. Clark's over 40.
No. You didn't let me finish, though. You didn't let me finish.
We have different books.
So 0 to 20, right? You're learning lots of lessons towards back half. 20 to 40, you're putting lots of deer. Like I'm still in that range where if there's an 140-inch deer that walks by me with a bow, he is not going to get a pass. And if I can shoot him perfectly and watch him die on film, I'm going to have a lot of pride. And it's more so like the practicing and going through the motions. So that way, when we get to it, the third stage, when you're like 40, it's like all of a sudden you've got 20 years worth of practice of killing like deer that I have on my wall. You know, I don't have that booner on my wall yet. I'm still chasing that. I would love to have one someday. But when I get to be 40, then all of a sudden, like
You
from
have
40
kids.
to 60, I've got a crap load of experience and you know what I'm saying?
I know, but that's why I would just
But
think
like
you
we're
should
like our
shift
Uncle
the
Ray.
bracket. Yeah, but see that
And he's
the
only
difference
looking
between
for
Ray.
big deer, and that's
I
pretty
know,
much
but
it.
Ray would right now rather have Savannah shoot the 180 than him. That's where I'm getting at. Like there's a reason why Matt shot the 196 and not Clark, and that's because Clark is a good dad and wants his son to do better than him. So if you shift that bracket a little bit, like 10 to 30 range is when you got the bloodlust and the antler lust, and then you get like the gravy train years where kids too young to shoot or hunt, or you don't have a kid yet. Like those are the years, because in the third part I feel like is like when you're passing it on, like when you're taking your kids and your grandkids out and like you're wanting them to have that experience and not you.
Yeah, but for the last half of that third, though, you're most likely pivoting on retirement, and then all of a sudden the grandkids are like, son of a bitch, Grandpa, you kill my deer every year because you don't work. Well, anyway.
That's two-sided though, because
Yeah.
you got to earn your stripes.
This is good.
Your grandpa, you're like, I'm shooting that big buck. I don't care what your kid do. I'm gonna shoot him.
All right.
How much does Grandpa really love me?
So
Okay.
I'll be that grandpa. And go, not that much.
I'm going to be
Big
like
buck.
Grandpa be like, watch Grandpa kill one.
Yeah. Cover your ears. It's gonna be a big bang.
I'm sure. Give me 30 years of that mentality, and I'll probably crack. So that pretty much wraps us up for episode number 52, the mechanical side of the fixed mechanical debate. Next episode, Jesse is hopping in the hot seat for part number 2, which is the fixed side. So Last Breath Live coming to you guys on Wednesday on our YouTube channel. We're going to cover our stand setup. So Garrett and I recently hung up some stands and why we hung it there, and all the work that we've been putting in before we actually hung our stands up today to lead to the positions in which we put them there. So Thursdays, Throwback Thursday, we've saved all of our big buck episodes for the season. So those are going to be dropping really soon. And we want to thank you guys again. That's the most important thing for listening to the Last Breath Huntcast. We really appreciate all of you guys that have been taking the time out of your work day, listening to us on the drive to work, home, maybe on a road trip, anything like that. Anything that you guys do to support us, we love, we appreciate, and we couldn't do this without you. So kudos to you guys. We're glad that you, for some reason, are listening to us and like what we're doing. Other than that, next episode, number 53, we're going to talk about the fixed side of the argument. Garrett, do you have anything to say before we go?
don't waste it. Looking forward to 53.
All right. We will see you guys in episode number 53. Thanks for listening.